So good afternoon, everyone. This is David Brown with the Annie E. Casey Foundation, and I'm joined by my colleague at the Casey Foundation, Imhotep Simba, and we're going to be leading this pre-bid conference over the next hour. We currently have, it looks like we have 77 individuals on this call today. So obviously there was a lot of interest in this opportunity that we announced a couple of weeks ago. So really excited that there's this level of interest. And so we're gonna get started, but I'm going to just a couple of things. Like I said, we have 75 folks on board. What we're going to do is we're going to provide at first just some just highlights and key elements of the RFP. Hopefully everyone's already had a chance to review it, but just in case, we will go over a few highlights. It won't take too long to do that. And then we, as you all know, we did provide an opportunity for folks to raise questions in the registration for the webinar. So we will, we respond to some of the questions that we received during the in that process, particularly those that we saw that there was a very similar or identical questions. We're going to address some of those right up front because obviously those are questions that a lot of folks had some of the same questions. So we'll address those first. We'll also find opportunities for folks to raise questions during the webinar, and folks can do that by just entering the question in the chat box, or if they prefer, they could raise their hand, and then we'll allow their mic will be opened up so that they could ask the question verbally. So there's either way we can ask those questions. Either, like I said, raise your hand or enter it into the chat box. But we're gonna start off with an overview of the RFP, and then begin to respond to some of the questions we've already received, and then open it up for folks to. So I'm going to share my screen, and then we're going to get started. Is the screen? Can you all see the screen up? Okay. So so as I mentioned, it's myself and Imhotep Simba, who are both members of the Juvenile Justice Strategy Group, are going to be facilitating and leading this this conversation today about this RFP. Imhotep is recently joined the foundation about several months ago, and is really kind of taking the lead on our youth engagement work. And I've been involved with the foundation for about 10 years and involved in the youth engagement work for about the past 7 years. This work has kind of evolved from a work that we've been doing over many years regarding the establishment of a youth advisory council that has been advising our work over the past several years. The picture you have here is the picture of our most recent cohort, which completed their terms in 2021. And many of them have been, these young people and from previous cohorts have been involved in the planning and design of this particular opportunity that we're going to talk about today. So we, last year we decided that we were not going to continue to convene a youth advisory council, but would instead develop another different ways to engage young people in our work and in the youth justice field. And so we developed this idea that reflected in the RFP. It really has roots in a collaborative process where we engaged former youth council members, other young leaders, Casey staff, and folks from the Restorative Response Baltimore, and and the process that was led by a group called Youth Prize in Minnesota. And what we're trying to accomplish is really to first is provide meaningful professional experiences for young people with personal juvenile justice involvement that really aligns with their career interests in youth justice, and that can really enable them to really enter the field and become, give them meaningful experiences within the field that will contribute to their career development as professionals in this field. We also are looking to really sustain career opportunities, and that hopefully to encourage youth justice organizations to create and sustain paid work opportunities for youth who have had direct justice system experience. To be eligible for one of these grants, you have to be a nonprofit youth justice organization with 501c3 status or with a fiscal sponsor who has 501c3 status. We also are, public agencies are also eligible to apply if they're actively engaged in significant juvenile justice reform, which are aligned with our JJSG strategies. And you can, you could link to those from the RFP that if you want to see what our strategies are. There's a link from the RFP into those strategies to see if you can see what the alignment needs to be. There are two options for organizations interested in applying. You can apply with a specific young person in mind who meets the criteria. If so, if you are that kind of organization, you can be located anywhere in the United States. There's also the option to be matched with a young person already known to the Juvenile Justice Strategy Group. Most of them are alumni of our Youth Advisory Council, but not exclusively. If that is the preference, we were going to give preference to organizations that are located in the regions where they are located, which currently is the Northeast, the West, the Southwest, or the Midwest. Please note that in the RFP went out originally, the Southwest was not included, but we've added a young person since then. So we've added the Southwest as a region included in this. So please take note of that. And generally, the young people must be between the ages of 18 to 30 with personal juvenile justice involvement. That means they've directly been involved in the system themselves within the last 12 years. And we list there some of the kinds of experiences that would be seen as qualifying for the young person. What we expect from the organizations that we would select, that they would provide the young professionals with a meaningful and substantive projects and tasks. They provide some proximity to the organization's senior leadership, so the opportunity to inform leadership and have engaged with leadership, and that they provide some ongoing mentoring. We also would expect each organization to fill 3 different roles. And these could be different people or they can be the same person, but there should be 1 or 2 folks who are at the executive level who are interacting with the young person. There would be a direct supervisor and also a liaison to the foundation and our partner, Restorative Response Baltimore. So those could all be different people or they could be the same person, but those are 3 roles that we think that are key to any grant that we select as a result of this RFP. The general responsibilities of the organizations are first to compensate the young person through the grant, to connect the young person to resources and other support to help develop themselves as professionals, to provide time for professional development activities. We will, which includes providing up to 8 paid work days for Casey Foundation sponsored onboarding of orientation and training, and also to handle the administration and logistics related to the young professionals' experience with the organization. For the young person, we would provide either up to a 12 to 24 month paid full or part-time employment opportunity with benefits. It would be a meaningful work experience with professional development opportunities that will be provided both through the organization as well as through the Casey Foundation and our partner, Restorative Response Baltimore. They'd also have a chance to network with a cohort of other young leaders, and that would be facilitated by Restorative Response Baltimore, and access to an opportunity passport, which is a matched savings account. And there's more information about that can be provided in the RFP. Total, we expect that we will, the maximum grant that we will award will be $100,000 for at least 12 months and up to 24-month grant period. That'll depend on the amount, the length of the grant will depend on whether it's a full-time or part-time experience, and also the actual salary level that is being paid to the young person. The grants will cover the young professional's salary, their benefits package, and indirect costs. Those are the only costs that we're looking to cover under this particular grant opportunity. We also recommend compensation of $60,000 a year for a full-time person, or of course, if it was less than full-time, that still based on that annual salary, but based on number of hours they're working. For at least for 35, if for full-time, 35 to 40 hours a week. But if they're part-time, it should be at least enough to qualify them for benefits. But we also the $60,000 is recommended, but we recognize in areas where there may be higher cost of living, the organizations may consider supplementing the salary with other resources. and areas with lower cost of livings, they may seek, they can seek consideration of compensation that is commensurate with the salary levels in that area. So you could, if you provide documentation of your organization's salary structure and the cost of living in your area, you could request a lower salary level that would be consistent with what salaries within the region that you're, or the city or region that you, where you're located. We will evaluate the proposals based on several factors, including the experience of the organization employing and working with young people with justice system experience. We will look to evaluate their scope of work and make sure it's meaningful, that it includes tangible and marketable skills that will set up the young person's future success, that there is organizational capacity and a plan to sustain the position or a similar position after the grant period is over. And there's also a plan for support of the young professionals' professional development. And also that the compensation is commensurate with the organization's pay structure and the regional standard of living. Those are some of the evaluation criteria that will be used to evaluate these proposals that we received. So the key dates is that October 4th, which is next week, would be, we hope each organization that's interested would submit a notification of their intent to apply to the foundation. That notification should indicate the intent to apply, but also whether you intend to apply with a young person identified or whether you'll be seeking a match from our pool of young professionals. Proposals are due October 14th. We hope to notify organizations that have applied with a young person identified that their selection by November 15th. We'll be conducting match interviews for those there's a match interest the week of November 28th. Hope to be able to notify those selected that there is a match being made by the middle of December. We hope to begin, once selected and grants awarded, we would hope to have we're looking to have a orientation for the organizations that are being funded the week of January 9th. This will be done virtually, and we'd expect both the supervisors and the liaisons to attend that. And then we looking to onboard the young professionals, the 3 young people that are selected for this opportunity the week of January 17th, and hope that young people will be able to start their positions sometime between January 30th and February 1st. So those are kind of the high level kinds of important points around the RFP. We're going to turn it over to questions, and I'm going to turn it over to Motep to kind of first respond to some of the questions that we've already received in the RFP. And I'm going to take down the slides.
Hey, greetings, Dave. Greatly appreciate the introduction and overview of the RFP. Yeah, so super excited. We received an overwhelming amount of inquiries. I think we may have more inquiries than maybe time permits. However, I would like to go through a handful of inquiries that I think may be helpful to address here online live. These inquiries will be posted later after the RFP pre-bid conference call. Therefore, you'll be able to check out the comprehensive response to all inquiries received not too long after the call. And then essentially after addressing those kind of handful of inquiries that I felt were the most pressing or could benefit from kind of addressing live, we'll kind of open it up to you all on a call to kind of ask any additional inquiries that may not have been addressed and or that may have come to mind while on the call. I see that Curtis Howard has raised his hand. Curtis, please bear with us. 2 people. Bear with us, and then after I kind of share a few responses, we'll be sure to swing it to you all. Really quick here, let me go to the top of the page, and I'll just kind of read these off and kind of provide responses. So a really quick, one of the first inquiries, I think we may have got this several times or so, but it was just, is there a budget format associated with the RFP? No template was attached and or provided. When you think about the template, there are just primarily three principal parts to your budget. The salary compensation of the youth or young professional, the fringe, indirect costs, and fringe. So that's kind of it for the most part. And overhead costs will essentially be influenced by the size of the organization. It'll be either 20, 25, and or 15%. I think 20% is for organizations with David, is it what, 20?
If they're less than 5 million, it's 25%. 5 to 10 million, it would be 20%, and over 10 million, it would be 15%.
Greatly appreciate that. So hopefully that's helpful. Kind of three principal areas, but no particular template or budget, but those are the things you really want to account for when coming up with that budget. Another inquiry that came up, and I don't know if we kind of addressed it in the RFP, but it was essentially, oh, sorry, no, this wasn't it. These are kind of close together. But I think just one of them was like, is there a competitive advantage as it pertains to applying with the youth as opposed to a youth? There is no particular advantage. We welcome organizations who have a particular youth and or young professional in mind, and we also welcome organizations who don't, and we will be sure to match those organizations with a youth partner within our pipeline. Another inquiry was, would a young adult who's still under court supervision be eligible to participate in this opportunity if selected? Yes. So hopefully that clarifies that and addresses that. This was a really great question. And essentially this question had to do, or the question was, does the foundation assess the organization's admin/managerial capacities to take on a team member? If so, are there budget numbers or number of staff that you may be a stronger fit? I think this kind of is a clarification question for like a component of our RFP. Also, are you looking for team members who also have experience in the juvenile justice system / mentorship within the organization? So does the foundation assess the organization's admin and managerial capacity to take on team members? So that'll be a really notable component that one of our partners, Restorative Response Baltimore, will essentially be supporting to kind of evaluate and ensure that partners, grantees have that adequate level of training and support to be informed as it pertains to supporting juvenile justice impacted youth. So that's that. There is no particular, I guess, like budget numbers or number of staff that will necessarily be a strong fit. There are three particular kind of like staff outlined in the RFP: senior / executive leadership, a direct supervisor, and then a staff liaison. However, in some particular cases, maybe those are 3 individuals, maybe that is 1 individual. It's all relative and depends on the organization's capacity and bandwidth, and kind of like what you all propose and what you all have the realistic capacity to do and propose within your staff. And are we looking for team members who have experience in the juvenile justice system? I think that would be very complementary, but not necessarily. We want to ensure, that when partnering youth with staff, we want youth and or young professionals with staff who first off have the capacity and bandwidth to provide that supervision and direct counsel on a daily basis to help set those youth up for success long-term within the grant period. We want to ensure that those youth and or young professionals have an opportunity to contribute and collaborate with senior and executive leadership within the organization. And and obviously, someone who will be our direct correspondent as it pertains to the productivity and progress of that young professional. So I hope that that's helpful. Moving forward, I think, so the next inquiry was, could you clarify what you meant by, is there interest in the type of work among the applicant pool? And what the rest of the question, job duties would be having do you attract? And I think it was like a second part to that or so. Well, actually there are three questions. One, could you clarify what is the interest in the type of work amongst the applicant pool? The second question was, what do you mean if we don't have a young person already picked out to apply with? And three, the inquiry was, what do you mean by, is the job / duties we have the young person to do attractive to the labor market? So the first one, so if an organization applies and they do not propose a youth or young professional, we have a pipeline of youth partners to complement organizations. However, what's proposed has to be aligned with those youth partners' goals and aspirations. And idealistically, when proposing a youth, the organization's function and role will correlate to what that youth aspires to do long term. And so therefore, after submitting that proposal, that will be shared with the youth within our pipeline to see if there's a synergy on their end as it pertains to their long-term aspirations. So I think that's like 2 in 1 from those first 2 questions. The third question as it pertains to just clarifying job duties / having I guess it's an inquiry around like, what do those job responsibilities, more so I guess the scope of work, have to do with being attractive to a labor market. So essentially, we want youth and young professionals to have meaningful scopes of work, synonym for job descriptions. And we want those experiences to be tangible. There are 2 high-level outcomes, idealistically, to this grant within the grant period. One, by the end of the grant period, youth and young professionals will have successfully completed this opportunity and retain employment from the organization in a full-time role independent of this role. That's the number 1 objective. Number 2, if for some reason there isn't a cohesion and fit, say 6 to 8 months, idealistically pretty early, 6 months or so, and there may not be synergy between the young professional and the organization, we want to ensure that the organization is complementing and pivoting to ensure that they are building up that youth's capacity to obtain long-term career opportunities elsewhere, concluding that grant. So it's very essential that the scope of work provides very meaningful tasks and assignments focused on strategy, business development, project management, the implementation, but things that are marketable if they cannot stay with that organization, concluding the grant period. It's the organization's job to coach and build the capacity of the youth and young person so that after this grant, they have long-term career pathways moving forward. So, running admin may not necessarily be the best scope of work, but it's all relative. It's based upon what you all craft. So hopefully that's helpful to address that inquiry.
Okay, so I think two quick questions I want to answer, and then we can open it up. I think there are a few folks raised their hands. If Tara can begin to, open up the mics for those, but just 2 quick questions. One was around whether the young person can be a current staff person, and no, it has to be a new employee to the organization. The young person cannot currently be a part-time or full-time staff person of the now they could be a young person that you worked with, they could be a young person who's been involved, but they couldn't be already be an employee. And the second quick question is what qualifies youth justice organizations? generally, I mean, we have a lot of folks who said that different kinds of organizations who maybe youth justice may not be their primary purpose, and that's okay, as long as the organization focuses at least in part on juvenile justice reform or on improving outcomes for youth involved in the juvenile justice system. So that, as long as you meet that criteria, you could qualify even if youth justice is not your primary intent. But with that, can we open up to the folks who raise their hands for questions?
Really quick, I wanted to address one more, then I think, yeah, it'll be a great segue to transition. I guess the last one that stood out or whatever, it was just an inquiry around could college students, could a college student working summer and vacations participate in this opportunity as a paid intern as opposed to an employee? And the intention around this grant is to provide compensated professional opportunities that'll lead to career opportunities directly after. So we aren't necessarily looking to provide internships per se. And this is over a 1 to 2 year time period, depending on compensation within the local geographical region. So yeah, I think with that, I think it's a good time to open it up to our participants on the call. I don't know if you,
Susan Solomon, go ahead.
yeah.
Can't hear you.
Susan,
Tara, you can't hear
Yep.
Susan?
No, I can't hear her either, but she does have permission to speak. Susan, if you're having technical issues, if you'd like to type your question in the chat, we can certainly answer it that way as well.
There's another person who had their hand raised. I think there was a Curtis also.
Let's go down to Curtis. Okay, Curtis is gone.
Oh, can you hear me yet?
Yeah, there you go.
There
Go
you
ahead,
are.
Curtis.
Okay,
All right,
perfect.
good, great. Yeah, my question was about the eligibility for what agency or what type of work, what type of employer would be a nonprofit and public agencies. Public agencies would include courts as well.
Yes, a court, yeah, a court agency could include a court. Like I said, the key with a court agency, I mean, a public agency, is that they actually are engaged specifically in juvenile justice reform work that aligns with the Casey Foundation or JJSG's strategies.
Okay, that would definitely be the case for us. Thank you.
Okay.
Brian Magnus.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. First, I'd like to say the chat is disabled from what I can see, so that might be preventing people from asking questions. But my question is about the benefits that are part of the salary package. Are the benefits to run through the organization's payroll, or is that an Annie Casey add-on, or how is that meant to work?
Yeah, the individual would be an employee of the organization. So they would be, the idea is that they would be entitled to whatever benefit packages provided to your employees, and that the foundation would reimburse, would provide for those costs as a percentage of their salary, like they would for most employees. So it's not, so it would be whatever benefit package the organization provides to its employees, we would expect to be provided to these young people, because they're going to be, the employer of record will be the organization, not the Casey Foundation will be making grants to the organization so they can hire the young person and then provide the benefits as part of their benefit package. Susan, are you with us now? And Tara, can we do anything about the chat?
Let me look into that. I'm showing it on my screen, so I'll take a quick look. Susan, I don't know. Let's maybe add. Let's add another person to talk. There we go.
Shannon?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, perfect. So I have a couple of interrelated questions. We would like to hire incarcerated youth as staff members as part of this opportunity, and we've secured permission from the organization or the commission that we're working with. Is that permissible on your end is the first question. And then relatedly, the one thing that we haven't been able to secure permission for is the Baltimore onboarding. So could that be done virtually for the young person? Otherwise, it looks like they're okay with it, but this would also mean that we may need to think about a modified version of benefits in terms of what they can and cannot access given the circumstances that they're operating under. So to recap, incarcerated students, youth, are they eligible? What happens to the benefits if we can't provide the full version of what we would normally provide an employee? And if they cannot attend the Baltimore onboarding, does that disqualify them?
Yeah, we haven't actually considered this question, and we'll probably need to get back to you on this one. I think there's implications for this we have to fully think about. So I wouldn't want to respond until we have a chance to talk about it left. So we will address this question in the when we post the RFP responses on the site where we've posted the announcement. We will address this question there, but not prepared to answer it this time.
Okay, thank you.
Emily?
Hi, thank you so much. This should be a quick question. If we know we want to identify our own young person rather than being matched, do we need to have that young person identified before we submit the intent to apply? Or can we just say that we're going to find our own young person?
In the intent, you just have to say you have a young person in mind that you want to, that you're going to be, but that needs to be identified, and their information and bio and all the recommendation needs to be part of the application.
Right, so that by October 14th or
14th,
that,
but
okay.
you don't need to identify them by the 4th, just that you intend to identify a young person in your application.
Okay, thank you.
I see there's a question in the chat I can answer quickly is, could you give us an overview of what the matching process looks like? So I can do that quick. So the idea is that once we get the applications, we will be sorting those that are looking for a match versus those that they have identified a young person. We'll determine which of those meet the minimum qualifications, and then those applications that come in that are seeking a match, we will forward to the young people who are part of our pool, based on both their regions and their level and their interests, and they'll get the proposals that are aligned with their interests and their geographic area, or if they're willing to move, any proposal that's aligned with their interest. And then they will identify which 3 of those proposals they'd like to pursue. And then based on that, we will set up interviews with the organizations that they're interested in pursuing, up to 3 per individual. And those will be scheduled for the week of the 28th of November. And then we will determine, based on interviews, where there is mutual interest on both the part of the young person and the organization to pursue it. We will look at the ones where there is mutual interest and decide which one or ones we think are the most viable and the most productive that we would then select for funding.
Robin Goldberg.
Hi, 2 questions. Number 1, how often is this grant awarded? Is this an annual thing or a one-time thing?
This is the first time we've done this, and I think there is some interest in possibly doing it again, possibly in 2024, because these grants would carry us through 2023, but it's too soon to say whether or not we would do it. But it is the first time we've done this.
Okay, and then second question, At our organization, we have a union contract that, presumably this employee would be part of that. Does that create any difficulties with the foundation? That there's a union contract with a set salary and benefit package.
As long as it's within the, yeah, as long as it's, I mean, if it's lower than the 60,000, that would need to be part of the explanation as to why this would be, the salary level is lower than 60,000. If it's higher, then there'd have to be some way to supplement those funds with other resources.
Okay, thank you.
I think it's
Alyssa and Lake.
Hi, thank you. Can you hear me okay? Great. My question in terms of geographic, where I am in the Northeast, but I wonder, is there any way to know like how many young people would be interested in working, let's say, in the greater New York area or something like that? Because I'm just wondering like what the fit is, or are you thinking that these would be 100% remote? We are a hybrid at this point, so the young person would have to be able to, get to the office, but I'm not understanding the limits that may make in terms of geography.
Well, do you have a sense of how many of them may be in the Northeast or in the New York region?
Yeah.
Let me pull it up. I think we may have had 1 or 2 partners within the region.
Okay.
And just to provide context at large, as long as like in the context of like organizations potentially needing a match from a youth partner, as long as they're at least within either 1 hour ahead and or behind the youth partner's kind of geographical location, that is, fine and permissible. Out of the kind of New York, Jersey, tri-state area, we have 2 youth partners. Yeah, offhand. So.
Right. And they would be providing potentially the young people that would participate in that. We couldn't find, if we have our own sort of youth justice partners in our area that could identify a young person. If we're not able to get a specific young person before the deadline, then that's not permissible. I see.
Yeah, the only way was if either from our pool or that you identify someone yourself. There's not a third option in that regard.
Okay, thank you.
Emily, does Emily have a question?
No, you answered me earlier. Thank you. I just
Sorry.
lowered my hand.
Okay, Jane?
Yes, hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great, thank you. I was just typing my questions. So thank you for doing this. It sounds like the intent is that you are seeding a position that will then be ongoing at the organization you're seeding it with first year funding, essentially. Is that correct?
In part, I mean, I wouldn't say, I think we're providing, the intent is 2-part. It's both to provide a professional development opportunity for the young people to develop a career opportunity and a career path, but also to encourage organizations to actually create opportunities for young people who've been system involved. So it doesn't have to be necessarily, a second year of funding. You could see it that way, but it's not exclusively about that. The goal is to really encourage organizations to really look to this population and to provide opportunities for them within their organizations, because that's going to be, we think, a big part of improving the organizations and is to include the voices of young people who've been impacted by the system.
Sure, okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Yeah, I also just kind of wanted to double down or hopefully provide insight into that, Jane. So, within that first year, like grant funding is provided to provide this opportunity for justice impacted youth and our young adult. The ideal is within that year that you have that youth or young professional, the organization will be providing meaningful and tangible work experience to that young professional to build up their capacity. Idealistically, to kind of provide them a year in advance to prepare to join that organization in an independent role. So like all organizations have, opportunities where there's a need, be prior to the RFP. this provides that buffer to kind of introduce them to the staff, the culture, the strategies, et cetera, to provide them that leverage to then join you all in a full-time role, idealistically within that period. If not, then supporting that youth to pivot and look for other career opportunities. But I did really just want to kind of emphasize that, is that this kind of provides that buffer that'll ultimately, in the context of, you know, providing tangible opportunities to the youth, but also for organizations to kind of coach and provide an opportunity to potentially future talent. So back
Sure,
over
thank-
to you, Dave.
Okay, so I'm looking at the questions in the chat. There was one with the 100K, can the organization split funding for 2 positions? No, we are awarding $100,000 grants to organizations to hire 1 young person. If it's part-time, they could be extended for up to 2 years, but not for more than 1 person. We only are intending to, you know, to select 3 individuals, not more than 3. The next question was, do you already have young people lined up for these positions? Are you looking for more? We do have young people lined up for the matched positions. The applicants can also identify people that they'd like to hire with these funds, but we're not looking to add more to the young people that are that we would match. That group is set. The next question was, is ACS expectation that awardee organizations will themselves employ the youth, or would there be opportunities to connect the youth with affiliate partner organizations but to supervise the process? The expectation is that the awardee organization would be the employer of record, not that they would be a different organization that they work for, that they would actually be whoever we grant funds to would be the employer of the young people. So we can hold them accountable for the expectations. I think we asked you the matching process question. Next one is, if our organization has branches in multiple regions, can we submit more than 1 proposal? To be specific, we have interest from our Los Angeles branch and our San Bernardino County branch. I mean, there's nothing to stop you from submitting more than 1 proposal. The likelihood that we would award more than 1 grant to a same organization is probably remote, but there's nothing that precludes you from submitting more than 1.
Let me loop in some folks who are on live. Patrick Taylor.
Hey, how you guys doing? I apologize if there's too much background noise. I'm at a conference myself here in Omaha, Nebraska, but I appreciate you guys still hearing me out. So you did just answer my question, David, as far as breaking up the money for 2 individuals. You guys are looking to only hire 3 people. The concern that I have is, you know, currently I'm paying, and when we still have hired individuals that we work with or that have also been in the juvenile justice system, but for an entry-level position to be paid $60 grand a year, you know, that's kind of difficult for me when that's $28 an hour. And I don't know how it works in other areas, but we start at 15 for our youth coordinators, and then we go up to currently $17 an hour. So it'd be a little difficult for my morale to be able to hire somebody at 60 grand for an entry-level position when I have people who've been working with me for 2 years that aren't going to be able to make that particular money. And honestly, there's probably directors that struggle with making $60,000 a year. So I guess my question is, like, was that a thought process when putting that together? You know, does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think we did consider that, and I think in the RFP it makes it clear that if in fact $60,000 a year is not consistent with the pay structure of your organization and with the cost of living in your area, that you could pay at a lower level. You just need to be able to justify why you're requesting a lower than $60,000 rate. So we recognize that for many regions of the country, this could be way above what people would make for this kind of work and above even what, like I said, their managers are making. So But for other parts, it differs by part of the country. So that we are open to consider proposals that would pay less as long as they're justified.
Okay, gotcha. Because I was going off of what I had originally seen as the recommended.
Yeah,
you know,
it's recommended but not required if you can make the case.
Gotcha. Okay, that
Okay.
makes more sense then. Yes, thank you.
I'll take one from, and then you can go back to but the one from the is what qualifies a participant? Do they have to be convicted and incarcerated with someone who's only been charged to qualify? They do not have to have been incarcerated or necessarily convicted or adjudicated. They at least have to have, but they can't simply have been charged. They have to have been either if they were charged and they spent some time in detention but were never subsequently adjudicated, that would qualify them. Also, if they were adjudicated and placed on probation and never incarcerated, that would qualify them. But simply being charged and and not going beyond that, and maybe only spending a night in detention would not qualify. But if they've been detained pre-detention, pre-adjudication, that would qualify them. But not being charged alone would not be sufficient. Do you want to take the next one, Natalia?
Yeah, hi, this is Natalia. I'm based in Building, Chicago. I just had a specific question. I posted a few in the chat that are separate, but just to explain one that I have about budget. So someone asked in the chat, is the 100,000 for each year or is it for both years? So for example, if we were to pay somebody 60,000 a year, would we be supplementing that additional 20,000 if we were to have a 2-year employee? And then my second question about that budget piece is, can we supplement someone's salary if we have additional funding from government grants that are related to the work that they're doing?
Yeah, for the first question, the idea is that the 100,000 is designed to be able to cover salary, fringe, and overhead for a full-time position for 12 months. If in fact the young person is part-time or is paid less than 60,000, and those dollars could be stretched further, it could be gone up to 24 months. It does not, the expectation though is not that it's a 24-month grant if it's a full-time person who's being paid $60,000 a year. So that's, and in terms of, and if in fact the amount that we're providing is insufficient in your region based on the cost of living, you could supplement their salary with other funding sources, yes.
Okay, and then just to clarify, because I think you had mentioned it before, so for organizations with a budget of over $10 million, you said the fringe rate would be at 15%?
Not the fringe rate. The fringe rate is based on your organization's fringe rate. That's the indirect cost rate.
Right, okay, got it. Great,
Fringe rate would be depending on what your organization's fringe rate is, usually anywhere, I mean, that's usually range 20 to 30%.
Yeah, I heard that wrong. Yeah, ours is different. So that's why I wanted to clarify.
Yeah, indirect and fringe are two, yeah, both are usually calculated based on a percentage. So the fringe is usually a percentage of the salary, and the indirect would be a percentage of all the direct costs, which in this case would just be salary and fringe. But the percentage, the foundation only has guidelines for around indirect costs, not around fringe costs. That's based on the organization's fringe rate.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for that.
Another question was, if a student will graduate in May and be employed in June with guaranteed employment at the end of the grant period, can employment begin in June? No, we are looking at this group as a cohort, so we're looking at all of them start at the same time in early February or late January 2023. And this question, will there be a grantee from Baltimore, preferably a new nonprofit organization? There could be a grantee from Baltimore, but we haven't explicitly set aside that there would be a grantee, has to be a grantee from Baltimore. But of course, any Baltimore group would be urged to apply, but we haven't set aside that one grant would go to a Baltimore-based organization. Actually, Chris, you have a question?
Yes, David Imhotep, thanks so much for today. David, I think you touched on this before, so I apologize. Could this be someone that you have already hired that's in the organization, whether they're part-time or full-time? New person, right?
Has to be a new employee.
Gotcha. Thank you.
The question is there a preference given the 12 or 24 month employment? I think, no, the 24 months, we just provided that in case it is a part-time position or less than 60, that it could be extended beyond 12. But there's no preference in terms of whether it's 12 or 24 months. We just want it to be at least 12 months.
Audrey Jones.
Hi, hello. Can you guys hear me okay? So I just have a question about the match process. Are prospective matches going to be able to see salary bids?
See the what?
Like, so some people have talked about the cost of living and then what the salary and what their pay scales are. Are potential match candidates going to be able to see as a part of our proposals, like the salary expectations that they're going to receive from various organizations?
Yeah, the expectation we would share the whole proposal with the
Okay.
young people. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you.
I think we can take the last live one on a call and then go through the rest from the chat and wrap it up. So Alyssa, Paul, and then whatever send the chat and close it out.
We have two Allisons, Allison Paul and Allison Lake.
Good one. I think I swung at Allison Paul. Going once, twice.
Allison, can we open it up for Allison, Tara? Allison Paul?
I think they might have stepped away or so.
Okay, well.
Yeah, they're not there. They're not there.
Okay. Next question I see is it okay to hire a previous intern to fill this youth role? Yeah, that would not be precluded. They're never an employee. They're not an employee. That wouldn't preclude them. Are there any youth in your network who are in the Pacific Northwest area, specifically the Salem, Oregon area? Amocha, is there anybody up there?
One moment. Up in Oregon, no one in Oregon. We have, actually, I lied. Not Salem, Oregon, but we do have an individual and partner in Oakland, Oregon.
Because have there been placements in California? This is the first time we've done this, so there's been no prior experience with this. So we have had young people from our Youth Advisory Council from California, but we don't have, are there any people in California in the group?
We have a partner in Sacramento.
Okay. The question is the 100K per year or total regardless of grant term? Yes, it's 100 grand total for the grant, regardless whether it's a 12 months or 24 month. Would be extended only, like I said, if there was part-time or less than 60 grand, but it's up to $100,000. It's not a $100,000 grant. It's to be depending on what the salary is, depending on your fringe rate, and depending on your indirect rate. But we figured that would be up to $100,000, not $100,000. That would be varied by both your indirect rate and your fringe rate. This question, is it possible to learn about the experiences or interests of the youth in the matching pool? We have a number of different roles available for which we could be created. We hadn't planned to do that. We'll have to consider that. I don't know what Amocha, what you think.
Sorry, could you share the question again? I was responding in the
They were
chat.
asking about whether or not there was interest, whether or not we would provide what the interests are of the young people in the matching pool so they can see if they could frame a position that is more aligned with their interests. I didn't say that was not part of our plan. And I'm thinking,
No, not at the current moment.
well, what about youth that have been in a diversion program? If their only experience in the system was that they were diverted in a diversion program, that would not qualify them. The indirect cost rates are actually detailed in the RFP, so folks can look there to get what the different levels are based on the size of the organization's overall annual budget. There's a question around expectations, role level. I think the obviously this is the what are the expectations regarding the role level, i.e. entry level professional, junior manager, mid-level manager, I think the general is that it'll be, entry level or maybe one level above that, but we're not necessarily looking for these, to be higher level. The idea is that these are young professionals who are kind of entering the field, not necessarily, they have some experience, but not necessarily significant experience in the field.
We're in the Bay Area. I'm wondering if some of your candidates might like to relocate to the Bay Area.
Yeah, we will ask them if, both if they're willing to relocate and also what areas are interested in relocating to, and then we'll share with them the applications from those areas.
Thank you.
That's an excellent question. I think I saw the last one. I'm not sure where you all are in the chat, Dave. From Amy Zandos.
Yes, that's where I am now too, yeah.
Yeah, in addition to professional development experience in general, do you prefer the young person to be directly involved in system change efforts such as policy efforts? Great clarification question, Amy. I think those are some of the experiences that contribute to tangible, marketable experiences, concluding the grant cycle, assuming you all don't want to hire them full time. Yes, I think though that's very, very positive, tangible experiences. Anytime you can work with policies and influence based upon lived experience and or learned experience, with an organization, I think that's extremely marketable to other organizations at large.
Yeah, I think the in terms of their eligibility, we're not, they have to have had the juvenile justice system experience, but we also want them to have demonstrated that they have some interest in this field, and that would be demonstrated by that they've volunteered, they've had work experience, they've had some educational coursework that has shown that they have a career interest, it's not just that they've done, so it doesn't have to be necessarily involved in policy change, but if they've been doing advocacy work or done community organizing or worked in a program to provide support or peer mentoring to other young people, it could be a range of things, but it's more just to demonstrate that they have a career interest in the field, and it's not is what we're looking for.
Hey, Dave, did you see the last inquiry? I think
I think we have to.
That. Go ahead.
I think we need to talk about that one. So I'm not ready to respond to that one yet about whether if they were a prior employee of the organization, whether that would disqualify them. So I think we need to discuss that one too. Are there any questions that we've missed? Do you notice any ones that you saw we missed so far? We're at 3 o'clock, so I guess we're time.
Yeah, I think there were quite a bit, but I think you did a great job at catching them in the chat. There's another thanks. I think if there are no additional present, there might be one individual whose hand is up. Don Curry, I think Don had an opportunity to share. I'll see if Don has anything pressing, and if not, I think we can kind of close out and share our written responses on it.
No, I was the Bay Area question. You answered me.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Your hands still
So,
up.
well, we appreciate all of the interest and the questions. We will, as Omotep mentioned, we will make this video available as well as post up responses to all the questions that were received, both in the registration as well as that were posed today. And also particularly the, I guess, 2 or 3 questions for which we did not have answers. We'll get answers to those. And those will be posted sometime early next week, hopefully. So with that, thank you, Omotep. Thank you, Tara. Thank you, all of you. And hopefully we'll hear from many of you in the next week with the intent to apply, and then with the proposals on the 14th. Thank you.